Hey everybody, Mr. Stewart here. I thought I would create a short screencast to support you in terms of how you can use the law of cosines, or the cosine law, to figure out a missing angle. Okay, so let's take a look at the triangle we have here. We're being asked to find angle A. Okay, and across from that, the 28, that's side A. And then over here, across from B, we have side B. Last but not least, across from C, we have 33 centimeters as side C. Okay. So according to the law of cosines, okay, what we know is that for side A, and I'm going to write the formula this way, okay, A squared equals, okay, B squared, and that's plus the C squared, and then minus 2 multiplied by BC, and that's multiplied by cosine of angle A. Okay. Just going to change the color on the square to sort of match the information we have in the diagram. Okay. The reason why I wrote the formula that way, that is to say, let's focus on side A, okay, which is here, and that's because angle A, of course, is across from it. So those two pieces of information are opposing, right? So one is across from the other. So when you're looking for an angle and you have the side opposite of it, that tells you how to organize your formula. Okay? So if, for instance, you were looking for angle B right here, then you would see the letters shift through the formula. Okay? So I'm just going to go off on the margin for a second. So if it was B you were looking for, or it would end up being B squared equals A squared plus C squared minus 2AC multiplied by the cosine of angle B. So you can see how letter B, or side B, is going to match to angle B. Okay? So right now it's not important to have all of the three formulas. Well, let's just focus on the one we have here in front of us. So the idea is that to solve for A, we need to go ahead and substitute in the values that we have. Okay. So for side A, we know that, so let's get that in there. That's 28. So 28 squared is equal to B squared. So B is 23, C is 33, and minus 2, so that's times the length of B, 23, multiplied by the length of C is 33. Okay, running out of room. I'm just going to drop down the line, and that's multiplied by, okay, this little dot notation means multiply, the cosine of angle A, which is unknown. So what we'll do now is we're going to evaluate. Okay, we're going to simplify and then we'll evaluate angle A. So let's simplify the squares. Okay, so that's our next step. We'll simplify the squares. So that's the 28 squared, the 23 squared, and 33 squared. So for these ones, I'm just going to grab a calculator. So 28 squared is 784. So that's the square of side A, or the square of 28. That's equal to square of 23. So let's bring that up. And we have 529 minus the square of 33, 1089. Okay, and we'll carry on here. Minus 2 times 23 by 33. We can do that all in one shot. Okay, let me erase that 2 here. Let's do 2 multiplied by 23 multiplied by 33. That's 1,518. And that's still multiplied by the cosine of the unknown angle, which is A. Okay, so let's keep on simplifying here. So what we'll do is we're going to add and subtract. So let's start by combining these terms here. Okay. The important thing to remember is not, I repeat, is not to perform the subtraction here. Okay, please remember that. That's why it's sometimes helpful to put in some parentheses here as a reminder. Okay, because recognize that here we're multiplying. Okay, so the order of operations tells us to do the bracket first before you multiply. Sorry, before you subtract. So you need to do this operation before we do this one. Okay? Otherwise we'd be contravening or breaking the order of operations. So let's get the subtraction done. So 529 minus 1089, that's minus 560. Minus 15 times the cos of A. Okay, so again, we're going to leave this here, this term that we have. That's going to remain on the right-hand side, but we're going to move this here. Okay, so that's going to end up moving to the opposite side because we're going to balance the equation. And what that means to balance is to add the opposite. So we're actually going to add on 560 to both sides, and that'll occur over here as well. Okay, so that zeroes this out. And this is going to add a 0. So on the left-hand side, we have 560 plus 784 gives us 1344. And that is equal to minus 1,518 cosine of the missing angle A. So now it comes time to isolate A. So we have the cosine of A, okay, and remember that that's being multiplied right here. So we're going to undo or reverse that multiplication. So let's divide by minus 1518 on both sides. And that's going to cancel. Minus 1,518 on the right-hand side. So we simplify that. We have this fraction here. Okay, so that's equal to the cosine of A. So as we know from some earlier math, if we want to solve for the angle, we need to take what is called the inverse trig ratio. In this case, the inverse cosine. Okay, so let me change the color here. That's not what I needed. Let's go back to black here. Okay, so angle A is going to be, put in the red for emphasis, is the inverse cosine of this fraction. And I would resist the urge to calculate or evaluate that fraction as a decimal, just in case you end up with rounding error by having to cut off some decimal places. So sometimes it's really helpful to enter it in all at once to your calculator. So for me, I'm going to enter in the 1344. I'm going to divide that by the negative of 1,000 518. Just looking for my plus minus key on here. It's one of those keys I don't use very often. There it is. I'm going to hit equals because this massive decimal. And then I'm going to use my shift or my inverse and go for inverse cosine. And I end up with 152 decimal 3. That's approximate as the value of the missing angle A. Okay, so this value here makes sense, okay, because we know that if you can see this here, right, that's a negative ratio. So we know that the cosine of an obtuse angle is negative. So that's a good sign that we've calculated that correctly. If we go back to the diagram, of course, angle A, by scale, doesn't necessarily make sense the way that it's drawn. So then again, you can't always depend on the way things are drawn in a textbook, on a worksheet. So you really do have to make sure that you understand the formula and how it works, and look at your answer and see if it makes sense. Okay, so there you have it. The law of cosines being used to solve for a missing angle.